A long time ago, I picked up Black Mesa on one of Steam's many annual sales and threw it in the pile of games that I would play someday. Released in 1998, the original Half-Life celebrated its 20th anniversary this year. I thought, why not take a trip down memory lane and see what I've forgotten? And I promise, that will probably, hopefully, be the last time I say memory lane in this video. 20 years ago! That's a long time! And the last time I played the original Half-Life was probably before Half-Life 2 came out in 2004. In fact, if memory serves me correctly, my brother owned that disc, and I always borrowed his copy up until I graduated college in 2001. So beyond the opening sequences, I've forgotten most of the game, and therefore I can't really be a reliable reporter on whether or not Black Mesa is a one-to-one recreation of Half-Life. But for what it's worth, I'll take you by the hand and guide you through my personal experience of playing Black Mesa and help you figure out if it's a game for you, or at least let you know if it was a game for me. Join me on a journey down memory lane. Please enjoy the video. First thing that came to mind while playing Black Mesa was, wow, yeah, I remember all of this now. Chatting with fellow scientists, the iconic train ride into the research station, exploring the bathroom, popping the suit on, realizing my job as an MIT doctorate is to push 3 carts into place. This was all cutting-edge stuff for the time. I remember thinking that that train ride was a cutscene, and when I realized I could move my character around, I was absolutely blown away. The amount of interactivity that Half-Life popped into a first-person shooter was just astounding. My second thought was, oh god, I'm getting old! This is from so long ago and I was an adult when I played it first! Ah! Existential panic subdued, I pressed on in the game. Video games at the time were experimenting with blending cinema style and video game action. Resident Evil helped pioneer the concept in 1996, but it was a slower-paced game with puzzles and hidden keys. Shooters at the time were also more action-focused. Go from point A to B, pick up ammunition and health along the way, kill everything that moves, find the key cards and maybe some hidden rooms. Next level.
Holy shit! That thing tore them to pieces.
Half-Life helped evolve what shooters would become. It ditched the concept of levels and made the experience one continuous cinematic adventure, complete with small scripted events. And it mostly shed the trope of finding the red key. Mostly. The final result is a shooter with tons of video game action, but cinematic horror as well, in the first-person point of view. So how does Half-Life hold up? The answer is, I'm not sure. I played the remake, Black Mesa. I'll tell you how that game holds up instead. The game, which, by the way, after almost 10 years in development, is still not completed. That's not a criticism towards the development team, that's a heads up to consumers. The developers have promised to be done by early 2019. Here's hoping.
Doc, a little help.
Should you buy Black Mesa? In my opinion, not at full price. Even if it is a well-intended and nicely executed reskin of a game from 1998, it still plays like a game from 1998. In some cases, that's not a problem. Final Fantasy Tactics, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Baldur's Gate, Ocarina of Time, all games from that year that I can pick up and replay without a hesitation. But now that I'm done with Black Mesa, I can probably go another 20 years before touching it again. Is it a bad game? Heck no! It's just not what I'm looking for in a shooter anymore. Though admittedly I much prefer shooters where I need to search for health and ammo, rather than having a near infinite supply of either, or both. Shooters by and large have learned so many lessons since Half-Life's development, many of which were implemented into Half-Life 2 and its episodic expansions. Where to begin? Are you tired of real doors cluttering up your game, where you open them up and you actually go somewhere and you go into another room? Get on down to Black Mesa for some real fake doors! Check this out! Won't open? Won't open. Not this one? Not this one. None of them open! So check out Black Mesa, a video game with a lot of fake doors! And for that matter, there's a ton of hallways that simply go nowhere in Black Mesa. At the time, I remember I was fascinated by exploring all this space, but now I feel like it's a waste of time because there's nothing to discover in these places. There's nothing interesting to see, or read, or enemies to fight, or more health to pick up, just empty halls. There were 2 points where I was ready to completely stop playing Black Mesa. Shortly after you finish the research areas, you move through the sewage treatment facility, and you have to find your way through a maze of conveyor belts. The action completely halts, and finding my way through stopped being fun, and quickly became a frustrating chore. It's such a massive tonal and content shift from the areas before it, and immediately after it. Thankfully, I powered through because the later game content gets pretty fun once again. The second place I almost quit was the game's first encounter with attack helicopters. The damageable area on the helicopter is so small, and you only have an experimental weapon to shoot it with, which gives poor visual feedback to the player as to whether or not you're hitting it or doing any damage. I'm still not sure if it can be shot down using any other method, which made me think, am I supposed to just run through this area and dodge the helicopter? The answer is no, by the way. The helicopter has surgical precision with its mounted gun, even from super far away, and always knows exactly where you are. So I save-scummed my way through the encounter, which doesn't make me feel proud. In fact, it makes me look back on my time with Black Mesa and think, man, that part was really a sore moment. And that led to my final frustration with Black Mesa, the enemy AI. I got tired of the enemies constantly knowing exactly where I was, nailing me with precision while they might only be a pixel or 2 on my screen. What fun is that? Is it challenging? Certainly, but it didn't feel like a satisfying type challenge. It felt like an archaic game design challenge. In a sense, its lack of sophistication broke down that cinematic wall that the atmosphere and the pacing had achieved. Just as the game reaches the portal to Zen, it shuts off. Which is fine, because I remember my frustration with Zen in the original. I almost don't have any intention of playing it again when it's completed. The rest of the game is still in development, and based on trailers, it looks promising. I might go back and check out the final chapter again one day, but probably not. The development team is saying that their version of Zen is different from the original, less frustrating, and more fun. But after my time with Black Mesa, that's how I wish they approached the rest of the game. Half-Life is a classic, certainly, but in this reskin, I wish it didn't feel like a one-to-one translation. It suffers from 1998 game design flaws. The doors that go nowhere, the hallways that go nowhere, the frustrating enemy AI, that damned helicopter encounter. Perhaps if this reskin wasn't stuck in development hell for so long, I wouldn't be as frustrated with it. The gaming landscape of 10 years ago was much different than it is today. The 1998 flaws wouldn't be so glaring as they are now. Did I have fun? Yes, I did! God, I love that weapon select sound effect. It sounds rubbery and squishy, which is such a weird choice for picking a weapon. But my experience will be different than many people. A good deal of my fun was rooted in nostalgia and revisiting these old hallways with some new paint on them. But now there is an entire generation of adults entering the workplace who were too young to play Half-Life on its release. If you missed it the first time around, Black Mesa isn't the must-play experience that Half-Life was at the time. And even though the game is only $20 at full price, I still think that's too much. But there are some of us who loved Half-Life and its sequels with such ferocity, we refuse to let go of the series. For me, Black Mesa was a solid reminder that it's done. It's never coming back. Happy anniversary to Half-Life. I'll play you again in maybe another 10 or 20 years. If I live that long.
Oh, God!